I'm trying a new intro because we said, for episode 20, new intro. Okay, here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast of and for the people, the greatest football podcast on earth, Francamente. My name is Franca. I'm your host, and I am so grateful for each and every one of you. Are you ready to buy us your football content? Let's go. Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Franks. F to the R-A. Okay, I'm not doing that. No, Frank, you can call me Franks if you're one of my loved ones. Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 20. Welcome to episode 20. This is a monumental occasion. We have been doing this for 20 episodes. That's 40 weeks consistently without missing a single one. We have only gotten better. We have only grown in this time. We have added followers. I love y'all so much. I'm so excited for this mini, revamp of Real Francamente that, once we hit this milestone, my incredible, amazing producer extraordinaire had ideas and I love them. And I'm so excited to continue this journey for 20,000 more episodes. We're going to be on forever. Like, we'll never not have this podcast going. I'm so happy. I'm so excited. Shouts to our new followers. Shouts to especially Tori in Atlanta, who has been literally faithfully listening to every single episode from day one. Started from scratch, is going back to look at our other content on the website. Thank you so much. You're amazing. People like that make this all worth it, because sometimes when we do content that is, outside of what is like the mainstream or whatever, it sometimes feels like we're screaming into a void, right? I know I have my loyal listeners and I love y'all so much. But it's awesome to know that, that there's still potential, folks out there who will find this podcast and love it. So thank you so much. Thank you so much to everyone. I'm so excited. So because it's episode 20 and we do have some folks, who have jumped on board, during this journey, I'm going to do kind of like a reintroduction episode. That's why I started with that poor attempt at rapping. So I'm so excited. What am I wearing for this monumental, momentous occasion? My St. Pauli kit, which I haven't worn yet. So I still have not. I have so many kits I'll probably not repeat for a while. St. Pauli, the club of the people, for the people, have been actively doing the work, the anti-racist work, the anti-fascist work, like truly, truly about it. And they really are a model for all of us who are trying to do this, this work in a space where like it's not always welcome, right? So like, I'm surprised it took me this long, but this is like, I think 2019 when they had Under Armour. Obviously, they're not in Bundesliga, but that's not what it's about. They're in Bundesliga 2, I believe. But it's awesome to like rep these colors, even though it's like kind of ugly. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's not the nicest kit. I have my Black Lives Matter patch on it. So I really, I'm always so proud to wear this kit. And I think it's appropriate. We're doing a reintroduction episode. We're kind of gonna, go back and reminisce about how amazing this journey has been. And also, reintroduce myself, reintroduce the podcast, the brand, how we've evolved, how we've grown. And so what a better kit to wear than this awesome St. Pauli kit for an episode like that. So so thank you so much to everyone that has supported in any way. I truly do appreciate every single one of you. This has been an incredible journey, so I guess I'll start with reintroducing myself, and then we'll talk about how this journey has gone and what are some of our favorite moments. I'm excited to continue this. So my name's Franca, Roibal Fernandez, Ph.D. I am a professor, an educator, really. I'm a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant and practitioner. I have a DEI consulting business, which coincidentally also has grown and blown up in the time since I've started it, which kind of coincides with starting this podcast, a little bit in terms of, like the whole thing. I'm about to do a TED talk. Like, I mean, my stuff has just really, like, I'm so humbled and honored at the way when you do things with passion, and I firmly believe this, it's not just something cheesy to say. When you do things with true passion, it really shows, and the universe really rewards you for it. When I started this, I was in a really toxic work environment, repressive, censorship, all sorts of trauma. I wasn't the right type of minority for them, so I was pushed out. But little did I know that that would be the catalyst for my life completely changing and shifting and evolving. And like, I'm now probably the happiest I've been in a very long time. And I think happiness is not a destination. Happiness is found in moments. And I've been trying to practice that more, and to acknowledge those moments where I'm happy, where I'm truly feeling joy in that moment. And that has come through work and labor, and like really like just following dreams. I'm really fortunate to have support in order to be able to do that. So I'm really grateful for that. What about me? This feels weird because I feel like I'm speaking to my listeners who like know me, but I know there's definitely a need for this. So I am a queer Latina immigrant from the global South. Spanish is my first language. I have every degree you could get, and most of it related to Spanish language and or Latin American studies and history and culture. And my research in academia is really, really versatile. So it has allowed me to expand beyond. I believe in interdisciplinary, like life philosophy, not just in academia, but I don't think we should like stay in our little bubbles. I think that is a way to continue, this toxic individualism that's bred by capitalism. So I believe in like spreading out and like sharing the intersectionality of all of our work and how all of that connects. So my dissertation for my PhD was about Carnaval, which is a popular culture phenomenon. And through that, I've been able to teach in all sorts of different spaces because of the way that popular culture operates in societies. I've presented about football as it pertains to race, gender, identity, and everything like that at conferences. I've published, conferences, internationally. My favorite was at Sheffield because they were a lot of stuffy people there who did not like that a Latina immigrant from the global South was telling them what it is, right? Especially, in the home of where football was born. So that's me. So because I have intersecting identities, I have levels of privilege, I have levels of oppression. I've always been really, really mindful of these things that have now become kind of like trendy buzzwords, right? Like diversity, equity, and inclusion, but just more than that, intersectionality, all these things. I've always kind of had that at the forefront. I was born in exile. Since this is a reintroduction episode, I can refer to episodes, and the episode titled Argentina 1984 like was one of our most popular episodes and one of my favorites. Go back and listen to that if you haven't. It's timeless. And it explains this whole history, right? So I was born in dictatorship when my parents were exiled during the US backed and ordered, CIA backed and ordered Operation Condor, which placed puppet governments, military dictators all over Latin America, including where I'm from, Uruguay and Argentina. And I was born in that space. And so, genetic memory, genetic trauma is a thing. Those are things that are passed down that your body doesn't forget, right? So it's always like social justice, empathy for the other has always been a thing I felt. I remember being a child and like having these thoughts and correcting people's language, and like people telling me that even before I remember, like I would correct them on, certain things having to do with like race and stuff and justice. And I was born like this. I was born this way. And so that has always been such a key component of everything I do. And I've always, in my youth, I had felt like was there a space for me anywhere, right? Like it's always kind of been hard for me to fit in spaces because I'm always considered, like, in many spaces in the United States, like too radical, right? Which I proudly use that term. And so I started to create my own spaces, right? There's a brilliant quote by James Baldwin, one of the most brilliant thinkers of this country's history. And he said, and I'm paraphrasing now because I didn't look it up. I didn't do my research. But he said, and I think this is actually exact, but the place where I fit in will not exist until I make it. Right. And that's a great quote for anyone marginalized who's trying to make themselves small to fit into these spaces. We create our own spaces. We can create those of us that have the privilege to do that. Let's do it. And let's invite others, right? There's always that question of, clout chasers or people who are in it for the wrong thing, in it, whatever it is, right? Thinking about, like, what does that look like when we make it, right? We have two choices. We can either shut the door behind us and, like, hog all of the, whatever it is, clout or whatever, or we can bring as many people on as we can. My philosophy is, if I eat, we're all going to eat, right? If I make a path where there was none, I'm going to make sure that path is now packed behind me with the people that have never been able to fit in anywhere, that may identify with me or not, right? It's about, like, all sorts of people who are like-minded coming together. So in that vein, in that philosophy, Real Francamente was born as a project first during the beginning of the pandemic. It was just a website, and I would, publish some stuff here and there. And then, the more I would talk to folks, the more I would, be in these spaces, and I would get, I have heard for years, like, you should start a podcast. And I never felt passionate enough about something to start it because I don't like to half-ass things. If I do something, I'm all in. If I'm in, I'm all in. Okay. I'm ride or die. Like, I am loyal. Like, I believe in, in commitment to the cause. And so I didn't want to do something half-assed that I would then get bored of or something like that. And then, again, with my bestie and producer, we really spent a lot of time fleshing out what this could look like. And then we finally just dove in, and it's been a wild, incredible, amazing ride. And I'm just so, so happy that I get to do this. That is, a passion project that could, like, help someone else. And I get so many instances of people who are like, wow, I found your podcast, and, like, I thought I was alone in thinking this, you know what I mean? And those types of things. And like the awesome thing about doing it for myself and by myself, meaning, obviously I don't mean doing it by myself. I have a lot of help, but I mean, like, hosting it, and it's my, I own it, or whatever the term is I can say whatever the fuck I want. And there's no censorship, and there's very few spaces where we're not censored, because we think this is a free country, but it isn't. And so that's great. I can really, like, reach folks who have truly felt like so isolated because they might also feel like, oh, what they have to say is too radical, or, or like too much or whatever. And then there's this voice doing this work, and it really does inspire people. And that, to me, is priceless, right? Like, this is a labor of love at this point. And so there's no, what I get out of it is joy and peace at being able to do something that I love. But what the payment I get from the universe is in that feedback, in those connections I make with people that are true connections, with folks that, again, that otherwise wouldn't have spaces like this. So it makes me so happy to be able to do this and to be able to connect with folks. And I'm so overjoyed to be recording episode 20, my reintroduction, my little mini, like not a rebrand, but we're, revamping some stuff. And I'm just overjoyed. So thank you so much. With that, we're going to go on a break, and then we'll talk about the brand a little bit.
going on? It's DJ525 here, and you're listening to the best podcast on earth, Francamente. Be sure to follow on Twitter and Instagram at Francamente. Check out the website for more content, www.realfrancamente.com. Subscribe on your favorite platform, leave ratings and reviews. Bias your football content.
Break, and I am so excited because my puppy Luna is asking for uppies next to my leg here. So here she is. What would you like to say to the people? Speak. She licked it. She licked the microphone. Hi. Hello. So we're talking rebrand, we're talking revamp. By the way, if you're not watching on YouTube, please, you're missing out on Luna. So go check her out. Maybe that can be a clip. So the brand. So how is the brand born? So I believe that anything we do has to have a purpose and a philosophy behind it, right? Like I like branding that is well thought out, that has a purpose, that has thought behind it, that has a philosophy that is a conversation starter. And that's the philosophy behind my branding for Soliluna Consulting, my consulting business, as well as Real Francamente. Right. So Real Francamente, at first glance, it's pink. I mean, not at first glance, it is like unapologetically pink. Bye, puppy. Pink, glittery, girly. Just all of the things that society associates with femininity, with weakness, right? With unserious, just like, oh, like this is like, what is this, and that is rooted in misogyny, right? That's rooted in misogyny because pink is associated with femininity, and we assume that means all those things: weak, unserious, all of that stuff. In fact, I have had groups of haters who have tried to turn my misogynist haters, right? Fascists and imperialists who don't like what I have to say, who turn my logo as a joke into like some sort of, like little, oh, this is a little kid thing or whatever. I'm like, proudly, I'm like, bring it on. Like, I love when people are so obsessed with me that they, that they do these things as if like it was going to affect me. Like, I'm so proud to represent little girls. I'm so proud to have a logo, to have branding that people can see themselves represented in as well. Cause we see so much branding that's like, like block letters, like black, blue, especially in the sports space. There's a lot of these like, oh, they have to be like manly or whatever, misogyny. So along with the branding, what's the name about? Real Francamente. So my name's Franca. It means frank. It means honest. It means real. And I couldn't have been named more aptly because I have no poker face. I cannot lie. I don't know how to lie. And I don't even want to, right? Like if I'm unhappy, you'll see it in my face immediately. And so Franca, I always get the joke when people meet me like, oh, Franca, are you really Franca? Like, especially in Spanish, obviously, I'm like, yeah, like I can't lie. And the term francamente is used frequently in Spanish. It means frankly, right? Like frankly. And so francamente has always been a word that's like kind of funny because I always see it in like writings and stuff. It's like, oh, that's my name, And it's a word that literally describes me to a T, right? And it has my name in it, Francamente. So when we first started this project, I wanted it to be a team name, but the space was kind of inundated with like FCs and SGs and all of that stuff. And I didn't want to go to Francamente FC or something like that. I considered CF, which would be like more in Spanish, or like, switching the order around, and like nothing was convincing me. And someone as a joke suggested Real. At first, I metaphorically slapped them in the face because I was like, how dare you? Like, fuck Real Madrid, right? Which is what we associate with Real all of the time. But then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, Real Francamente, like, that's so unique, first of all. Secondly, there's the double entendre pun with real, which means real, right? It means real in both languages. It's bilingual. Like the fact that real francamente works in Spanish and English, even though it's a little harder in English, but like the idea is there. Um, real, it's real in both languages. It also does mean royal. So it goes along with that, like that idea of like elevating the feminine, right? We're queens and princesses. Um, and it's a team name. And while it's associated with bullshit with Real Madrid is not the only Real team that exists, right? We've even got one in the US. And the more I played around with it, the more I liked it. And I was like, this is great because it is also a conversation starter, like for people who assume it's like in honor of Real Madrid. I can be like, no, sir, here's my whole philosophy on life and branding. And it's extremely anti Real Madrid. And it's kind of like a reclaiming of that, right? It's kind of like a reclaiming of that. So I love it because it works on so many levels linguistically. And that's one of my favorite things about, branding is when you've got like all these like differing levels of the ways that it can be looked at. So that's a little bit about the name. And my whole thing has always been true anti-fascism, true anti-racism, true anti-misogyny, true anti-homophobia. And I say true because a lot of these football spaces are permeated with the typical liberal, which, by the way, when I criticize liberals, please don't get it twisted. I don't do it from the conservative side, which like is the bottom, like it's like the lowest bar. We should all be criticizing conservatives. Okay. Like this isn't from that side. I criticize liberals because they are basically conservatives. Like they are just conservatives with lipstick on, like meaning like referring to that saying that's like putting lipstick on a pig or whatever. Like they're no different. They're still imperialists. They're still, they still support war criminals. Like the football space is inundated with this type of person who will pretend to be about it, will pretend, for clout to say like, oh, support women's sports, support this, and like Black Lives Matter. But like in reality, like they actually are imperialists who support the war machine, who support the US men's national team, who support MLS. Like you can't, like those things are not compatible, right? Like in terms of your critique. Now, I'm not saying like, okay, you support what you support, but like don't do that without a single thought in your brain. Like, there's a TikTok edit of the song by She Who Shall Not Be Named that's like, I've got nothing in my brain. And then it just, instead of like going on, it goes, nothing in my brain. Ooh, right? Like it just keeps going, I've got nothing in my brain. Like that's literally, like you can't exist at like with like devoid of any critique, right? Like it is incompatible to support the war machine and imperialism and capitalism. And oh my gosh, look at Luna. She looks so cute. She's a little beagle back there. She just can't be away from me. I have ADHD. I don't know if y'all knew this. But yeah, so it's incompatible. And so like I can't stand the hypocrisy because then the people that are actually like calling that shit out are the ones that get like, like, oh, they're this and they're that. And it's like, you're not doing any anti-racist work. You're not doing any anti-misogyny work because you're incapable of having like a dialectical thought, right? Like you're incapable of having that analysis, because you've been so brainwashed by the capitalist machine. I'm not about that. I mean, you'll notice, I don't really interact with many football like accounts or anything like that, like especially in the US, based space, because they're just not like those people are not my people. Like, and they it's people who like take offense to certain comments and things about like just real life. And like my shit is said from a standpoint of like lived experience, of viewpoint for sure, but also like of this trajectory of academic study, which I think academia is bullshit, but I am a nerd and I have done a lot of research. So this isn't just pulled out of left field, right? Like there is a like something behind it that's a little, there's an intellectual content. And I'm always really hesitant to say that word because it gets people are like, oh, intellectual and this and like some like it's just ironic. It's ironic the way that the hypocrisy shows in these critiques, right? So anyway, all of that to say that my branding is unapologetic, okay? Yes, it's girly. Yes, it's glittery. And also it's fucking serious. And also it's educational. And you go learn, okay? The reason why I even started to think about doing content is because years ago at this point. And I've always, I've written about this from an academic standpoint, everything like that. Like, and I made a thread that became like the thread TM, right? Like trademark, like, that became like the silly way to refer to it. That got me a little bit of a following on Twitter on my personal account. That was about Barcelona and Real Madrid, right? Representing Real Madrid being fascist, Barcelona representing freedom traditionally, historically, obviously with the caveat that yes, now it's all gone to shit because modern football, because capitalism ruins everything. If there's one thing I am, it's consistent. And that's what people can't stand, right? Because people who are hypocrites and don't have any like idea about how to analyze and have these thoughts, these like this analysis will say like, oh, this is, how is this like whatever, like blah blah blah. And it's like, it's consistency. If you look, when I'm analyzing Barcelona from a standpoint of freedom because of what it meant during the Spanish Civil War, where Spain had one of the most brutal dictators, because he didn't die. Okay, he was in there for decades, and so like Spain has a very complicated history with fascism, and that's just real. That's just like real history. So like when people can't back their shit up with facts, they get mad at me, and I'm like, well, you could just do the research, right? So anyway, my thing is consistency. If I'm calling something out, I will call myself a hypocrite that while I'm calling out capitalism and corruption, I'm still watching the sport and wearing kits. I've said this so many times. I'm such a hypocrite too. We all are. We either, if we're consistent and we're going to critique, we either have to shut the fuck up or we have to like quit watching. it's the only option. So, but at least having these discussions will open up that discourse to say, like, let's watch like intellectuals in a good way. Intellectualism is not a bad thing, right? Like intellectual, healthy discussion that's cerebral is not a bad thing. And so that's the spirit. And so because those things tend to not go hand in hand with pink, glittery crown, imagery, I like to subvert those narratives. And I love pink and I love glitter and I'm a serious fucking academic. What are you going to do about it? Right? Like, and so I just love it. I love that because a lot of people hop on and they're like, oh, this is so cute. And it is so cute. And we're going to have merch. I've been promising merch. We're going to have merch for real. And it's so cute and it's also real and it's fucking serious and you're going to learn about history. And I tell people all the time, people are like, you should have a podcast. I'm like, I do have a podcast about football, but really it's not about football, right? It's about so much else. And football is kind of like the tying narrative, the football, the real football you play with your feet. So the branding's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's like my favorite logo I've ever seen on anything. Shouts to Elise, who's not only the producer, but the designer of that gorgeous logo that I'm going to love forever. It's something I've never gotten tired of. I'm obsessed with it. If I could have stickers of it everywhere I possibly can, I do. I have my little glittery stickers. If you want one, let me know. I'll send you one in the mail. And I have postcards and I have like really cool stuff because I believe in aesthetic beauty. Like I think that things should be beautiful. I think that things don't need to be ugly to be considered serious, which is something that is definitely mainstream. And that's where we're at. And so I love it. I love my branding and I love the philosophy behind it. Right. And so we came up with this phrase that a lot of times people hear it or say it and don't really get it, like, because it's like, oh, bias your football content, because we tend to use bias as a noun, not as a verb, right? So I turned it into a verb for this phrase, for our catchphrase, which is bias your football content. I am imploring you. Okay. And this is a callback to, I was watching the trailer for when the first episode dropped. It was so cute. Maybe I'll post it as a reminder, right? Like I said that and like it felt like almost like a political speech. Like I am imploring you to bias your football content, but this could apply to any content. We have this really immature expectation of neutrality. And neutrality does the work of the oppressors. When you're neutral, when you're moderate, when you're in the middle, and on one side there's Nazis, there's nothing admirable about that. And so we have this expectation in these spaces that are people that we watch, our sportscasters, our people, our influencers, or whoever it is that's working in football for our purposes, right? But this applies to many things, has to be neutral. Like, God forbid we actually see them take a stance for anything. What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? I'll tell you what it is. It's imperialism. It's capitalism, and it's that brainwashing that keeps us in the United States in this state of never questioning anything. And that is why we never get anywhere, because we have this immature, like completely ridiculous, unnecessary expectation of neutrality from people who are human beings. How can we be humans living in this dumpster fire of a world and be neutral? I have no respect for you if you truly abide by that standard of neutrality. Okay. And so my combat kind of like tagline that's short, but that gets the point across to combat that is like, no, let's not be neutral. Let's show our bias, right? And not in the sense of like biases around like race and gender, all this stuff, not in the DEI sense, but like, let's show, even when it comes to like who you're a fan of, a lot of times in these journalism spaces, like, oh, they can't, that we like, there was a scandal, and this was in Latin America, like it wasn't in the US, but it's the same idea, right? Where someone who's a journalist, their photos leaked from Twitter from like 2015. And like, I thought it was like going to be a scandal about something like scandalous, right? It was because they were wearing a kit of their team in 2015 and they're a journalist. Does being a fan of a team, because everyone is in Latin America, and this was in Uruguay. In Uruguay, everyone's a fan of a team. Does that make you less capable of doing your job? It does not compute. So it can be as simple as that, or it can be as harmful as when we expect people at that big scale, the folks at NBC, and all that stuff, to like never take a stance on like race, on gender, on rape. We let the reason that expectation of neutrality is the reason we continue to see cases of rape, of misogyny, of rape culture, of abuse against women, which we see constantly, because all of these past couple episodes I've said, here we are again. We got to talk about it again. How long are we going to let rapists get away with it? Well, until we stop with this bullshit expectation of neutrality, it's not going to happen. We're all contributing to it. It's a pyramid. Okay. I have used the pyramid of white supremacy in many of my spaces. A lot of you may know it. A lot of you may not. Ask me for it if you want. The pyramid of white supremacy is an infographic from the Institute of Equality. And it shows us that white supremacy is a pyramid. And at the top, we have the highest levels of violence. But the shit that holds that up, and that is the bigger piece of the pie, right? Because it's a pyramid. So the bigger piece at the bottom is all of the shit we let by every single day. Indifference, making jokes, okay, not believing victims. All of that shit upholds white supremacy. That's applicable to all of this. We uphold all of those injustices in our sport by continuing to be complicit in that expectation or that demand for neutrality. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And so I cannot stand by. Could not have an outlet where I am not imploring you to bias your content, to expect these human beings who are also citizens of the world and have a right to speak, okay, to use their platforms for good. That's when we'll actually see some real change, because people are like, oh, they'll call it out like, oh, equal pay, which now we have, but it's to an extent because there's all sorts of caveats, okay? But like, oh, women, injustice. When are we going to see this be like treated the same as men? When are we going to see less rape culture? When you stop being fucking complicit in capitalist, imperialist, brainwashing fucking bullshit by supporting that neutrality. Okay, that's when it'll stop. And so I'm doing my little tiny small part in my space, but we're building an army. Okay, and I hate to use that term because fuck the army, and the U.S. military is the biggest terrorist organization on the planet. But we're building a group of warriors, okay, who are fighting that good fight. And that's where representation matters. That's where representation matters. It's in someone seeing this maybe who will say like, oh shit, like we actually can speak out, like who, and like they tell someone else and they start to be a little more open and they start to be a little more biased in their content. Okay. Stopping with this bullshit expectation of neutrality. And that's how we grow. And that's how we actually get somewhere. We're never going to get anywhere if we continue to put patches on our kids, as I'm wearing one right now. You see the hypocrisy. Okay. But I'm about it. I am about it, right? If your activism stops at this patch on your kit, I hate to break it to you, we're not getting anywhere. And look at where it's gotten us, because this was a thing in 2020 with the kids that started in England and Black Lives Matter and everything like that. Look at where we've gotten. Nowhere, because people continue to just stop at that surface level and be grateful and like cheer for like all these surface level fucking bullshit, empty platitudes. We have to stop praising mediocrity. We have to stop rewarding mediocrity with our loyalty, okay? Because listen, I didn't talk about my teams today. This is a reintroduction slash a, venting session. I don't know. I'm a Red Bulls fan, but there's an asterisk there. Like, I was a Metro Stars fan since day one. Okay. I have a love-hate relationship with that team. Hate more than love at this point. I am their number one hater. I'm their number one hater. If the Red Bulls have 1,000 haters, what's that mean? It's like if the Red Bulls have 1,000 haters, I'm one of them. If they have 10 haters, I'm one of them. If they have one hater, it's me. If they have no haters, I'm dead, or like whatever that, you know what I'm talking about, right? That, like, I cannot stand that corporation. And I will be the first to call that shit out. And I can't stand those blind followers who don't see the shit that we're complicit in by supporting by supporting MLS blindly, just like blind faith following, right? Shit like that. Like, I can't stand it. I need it's my lifeblood to be able to have these discussions to like actually make some real true change. By the way, again, my other teams, just as in this like reintroduction vein, I am a Barcelona fan since birth, Peñarol and Boca Juniors fan since birth. And I like Manchester United, not since birth. That's my most recent addition. And I also have teams like I like Borussia Mönchengladbach, like also very recent. I like Napoli. I've liked Napoli for Maradona reasons. Like, they're pretty cool. They're pretty good, in terms of things that they stand for and everything. So those are my teams. But one thing I can do is be critical. And I can't stand that blind faith shit, right? Like, because we're not in a cult, and I'm anti-organized religion, and it's not. And while football is my religion in the Galliano sense, okay, yes, it is. But I'm able to still have that critical eye when my teams do shit that's fucked up. I'm gonna be the first to call it out. And we have not enough of that. And so that is the goal here at Real Francamente. Like it or not, we're doing the work. There's people who seethe when they see that I'm still alive and kicking and I'm still doing this podcast, okay? Because they really can't stand that, like, I have been removed from spaces for, saying shit people don't want to hear. And so then what am I going to do? I'm not going to, off myself. Like, I'm going to find a place where I can say what the fuck I want to say without censorship and without fucking bullshit and having to like mold to fit into that liberal, bullshit space. I don't like it. I never liked it. If you love me, I love you. If you hate me, I love that for you. I'm a very controversial figure. I said this also on episode 1. Okay. And that was also a clip. Like, I'm a polarizing figure, and I'm okay with that. I don't need to be liked. Okay. I would rather have very few people in my circle who are about it than have just a million acquaintances that I like can't be myself with. There's nothing about that is appetizing to me. So I don't do this to appeal to the masses or to grow. Coincidentally, the universe rewards that, right? And so after episode 1 launched, one of our moments of glory on this podcast was that I was on Miss Rebecca Lowe's podcast, The Lowdown. At the Orlando Fan Fest. That was our episode 2, our bonus episode that came out before episode 2 came out, was about the Orlando Fan Fest and like how I was literally on NBC Sports. So like, shit comes when you do your things authentically, with passion and with purpose, okay? And without that hypocrisy that is so rampant. I promise you, like, there is nothing to fear about being unapologetically yourself and being unapologetically anti the things that make this world go around, like imperialism, capitalism, bullshit, fucking US centrism. We're not doing that here. Other amazing episodes, other than the ones I've mentioned, my Galliano episode is probably the most viewed. It has the highest numbers. I did a bilingual Galliano episode, which I've been promising, and we will do another one. And some titles I've loved: Where Are the Knives? Where are the knives? Okay, because that's literally me. I'm like, let's go. I've been listening to and I'm teaching an African and African American studies department currently, and I'm teaching an intro class. We've been listening to and reading a lot of Malcolm X, a lot of MLK, like his real radical stuff, not the stuff that we're whitewashed to believe he was about. And so there was a Malcolm X speech that critiqued the way religion blinds, specifically Christianity, blinds people. And so they go to church, they sing these hymns, right? And then in the meantime, they're not fighting the good fight for racial justice. And so his whole thing in that speech was less singing and more swinging. Okay. And I was like, damn, if that shit isn't such like a great, concise way to say the shit I've always said too, like, where are the knives? Let's fucking go. I'm ready to burn this shit to the ground. I do not care. Like, let's burn the shit down. Let's start over. Okay. Because it's the only way. There is no reforming this fucking carceral police state, capitalist, imperialist hellhole that we live in. And the conservatives say we have freedom of speech. I don't know. Okay. But if we go by that, then I'm allowed to say the shit I want to say. You don't like it? There's 60,000 million other podcasts that will give you recaps and little this, whatever content you're looking for. This isn't it. I thank you so much. That's another thing. I'm not looking for followers or listeners who aren't aligned with me, because why are you going to listen to me to hate me? Like, don't do it. Like, don't do it to yourself. Okay. I promise you're wasting your time and your energy. It's just not worth it. Go on and listen to the other podcasts that you like. Okay. And that's that's also, I think, a thing that's not common, really. Like, people are very much like, oh my gosh, like pleasing the audience and the customer's always right. Capitalist brainwashing. No, that's not true. I'm going to do what the fuck I want. You're going to like it or you're going to leave. That's it. That's the bottom line. So I don't know. I'm really glad I did this episode because I've been like needing to like reconnect with my passion for Real Francamente, for football. My passion for Real Francamente never went away. I love this podcast so much and I love y'all so much. But I needed to kind of like remember why I'm doing this, right? So this was awesome for me as well. And I'm so excited to see what the next 20 episodes hold for us, what the next 30 episodes, what the next 60,000,000 episodes hold. I'm excited to bring folks on. Maybe for this new little mini revamp, we'll have some interviews, which we had promised at the beginning and haven't done yet, mostly for logistics reasons. But maybe we'll cook something up in that regard. So yeah, that's another episode down. I'm so excited. I love y'all so much, and I will catch you on the next one. And that was another episode of Real Francamente. Thank you so much for listening. I am obsessed with y'all. Literally, I'm so obsessed with y'all. Please share with your like-minded friends. Follow us on socials at Real Francamente. Leave likes, comments. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, and leave comments, ratings, and reviews if you love us. Check out our website for more content, www.realfrancamente.com. We will catch you on the next one, and as always, bias your football content.